So if you're watching this video, the odds are you love the TV show CHiPs, and maybe you've seen some of my other videos that I've done on CHiPs, and although you enjoy the TV show CHiPs and maybe you enjoy my videos, you might be asking yourself, hey, this is great, but where's all the monkeys robbing banks? Well, today you're in luck, because we're checking out filming locations for Season 5, Episode 23, Trained for Trouble. Let's go see what we can find. The episode begins with Ponch and John riding away from the Hotel Cecil down Main Street in downtown Los Angeles. As you can see here, that sign for the Hotel Cecil is just about the only thing that still looks the same. All of those buildings that were on the right side are completely gone. It then cuts to Ponch and John riding in a completely different place. Notice Los Angeles City Hall and the sign for that restaurant. They were riding down Broadway through Chinatown. There's Los Angeles City Hall, and there's the sign for that restaurant. They're now back on Main Street in downtown Los Angeles, and we see them pulling over in front of 508 Main Street. And as you can see, just about nothing on this block looks the same anymore, except for maybe those lampposts. The camera then pans over to a small eating establishment where they're having lunch with Bonnie and Grossman that was located at 504 Main Street. Now, the shape of the window and the door are about the only thing that somewhat still looks the same. Just a couple of blocks away, there's a bank that's about to be robbed. Now, this building too looks a lot different, aside from those columns and that tree on the left side. This is now a collection of retail shops. Suddenly, we see the bank robbers come around the corner, and yep, it's a group of monkeys. This is just at the corner of the building. Right here is where all of those monkeys would have been rounding the corner in their cute little overalls. But don't let their little outfits fool you. These monkeys are hardened criminals. Ponch and John and Bonnie are standing in front of the restaurant as the bank manager runs by, chasing after the animals. They use Bonnie as a coat rack and they take off. The animals go running around the block and into an alley. And this is the alley that's directly behind the restaurant that they were just at. So this right here is the pipe that the monkey on the right side was climbing up. Right beside it, you have the door with the fire escape right above it, and the ladder that the monkey on the left side was climbing up is no longer there. And unfortunately for Ponch and John, the monkeys run back to their owner and everybody gets away. And then we find out that the owner of those bank robbing animals is in some kind of a relationship with Doogie Howser's mom. And he's the one that put her in the hospital, and he's robbing those banks to pay her medical bills. Meanwhile, things are heating up over at Chippendales. So this building right here behind me, this used to be Chippendales. And this is where Bonnie goes with her friends for a night of fun, and where she sees the Ponch lookalike for the very first time. Now, the building really doesn't look anything like it did back then, but if you spent some time, there's still a few things here that you can match up. Bonnie even shows Ponch some pictures of the exotic dancer, and Ponch isn't thrilled about it. And I'm not really sure how Bonnie got those photos because we didn't see her taking any pictures, and I don't think that would be allowed in a place like that. It was right out here on Venice Boulevard between Hughes and Motor Avenue where Ponch and John pull over the lady for speeding, and then the lady ends up thinking that she recognizes Ponch from Chippendales. We see an armored truck pulling into a parking lot, and surprisingly, all of the buildings that you see behind it are still the same. This one all the way to the right, at the time, was a Thrifty's drugstore. You can see it when the truck's pulling into the parking space. Now, Thrifty's became Rite Aid, but this building is currently vacant. On the other side of the parking lot, we see Officer Turner walking over to his patrol car after coming out of possibly that See's Candy. Maybe he stopped on his break to get some peanut butter patties or some delicious Bordeaux chocolates. Who knows? But that See's Candy would have been where this salon is. Now, none of the businesses here are the same, but just to the left of him, on the factory outlet building, you can see some stones around the window, and that is still there. Suddenly, a hawk comes swooping down and flies right past the armored truck guard, but then it magically ends up right on his face. Just a few feet away, Officer Turner watches the entire thing and does nothing. Man, the butterflies in this area are out of control. Thanks to Officer Turner doing nothing, the hawk grabs the money and gets away. Ponch and John come to a stop next to a Norm's restaurant that was on the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Vermont. It's now Kaiser Urgent Care. Now, supposedly, they look over and see a guy come running out of a bank with his dog. This bank would have actually been to their left, about a block and a half down on Vermont. They see the guy get on his motorcycle with his dog, and they assume that this must be the guy that's been robbing banks using animals. And the chase is on. Oh wait, check this out. Notice the trees right behind them like they're in a park or something? But nope, remember, they're in front of Norm's. So the chase then quickly moves over to Griffith Park, and we see them riding their motorcycles down the street right here. You see them passing by the entrance to the 5 freeway on the right side, and you can see a little bit of the train tracks inside of Griffith Park on the left side. The camera turns around this way, and we see them heading into Griffith Park. Now, the rest of the chase takes place inside of Griffith Park, and the problem is I showed up right now to film it, and you could probably see on this sign right here behind me, the park is currently closed due to all the fires that we're having right now here in Los Angeles. And finally, after my 3rd trip out to Griffith Park, it's finally reopened, and we can now go find those spots. And of course, it turns out that this guy was not responsible for the bank robberies. He was only running because he thought it was illegal to have his dog on his motorcycle. Now, over at Chippendales, Ponch goes to pay a visit to his lookalike, and he can't believe his eyes when he sees him in person. Oh my goodness. I mean, now obviously, this is just Eric Estrada playing both parts because this guy looks exactly like Ponch. The hospital used in this episode is Hollywood Presbyterian, and the building that we see in this episode, well, it still looks the same, but they've added so many new buildings around it that it's now impossible to get the same shots that we see in the episode. We see Lou, the owner of the bank robbing animals, pulling into the hospital to visit Mrs. Hauser. He would have parked his truck right here in front of me, but this is no longer a parking lot. There's actually a brand new building being constructed right behind me. As Lou goes running into the hospital, the camera zooms in to show us which room was Mrs. Hauser's. And it was this one right here. It even still has something right in the center of the window. Mrs. Hauser, aka Ellen, tells Lou to kick rocks. She doesn't want to see him anymore. And as he's leaving the hospital, he gets spotted by Ponch and John, and the chase is on. So basically his truck would have come right down this street and then it would have made a left right over here. So this now leads to a public storage over there. I'm not really sure what this, oh yeah, this is also part of the public storage. But back then, I guess this was just a big empty dirt hole and they filled it with cars, and that's where he crashed and his truck caught on fire. But luckily, Ponch and John were able to pull him out and save his life. Unfortunately though, he had to live the rest of his life with 2 slices of American cheese on his face. Very sad. Well, that is gonna do it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.